Hello, welcome to Kingdom Coffee. We decided to go ahead and do a second part to our first video, and we're going to go into the fivefold, which I think is so fun.
Mm-hmm.
I've been studying this, living this, learning about this, hearing this for, I don't know, the last 15 years, I would say, for me, just wanting to understand it more and just really have heard many different aspects of it. I think the first person I heard really in depth talk about the fivefold would be Chris Valentin. That was my first experience. And then just from there, it's been talked about a lot. And I feel like there are a lot of different perspectives on it.
There are.
Some people, their hackles go up when they hear fivefold. Some people get excited. So we kind of just wanted to open up that discussion. We obviously don't have all the answers on it, but Linda has a cool experience from the beginning days of some of her church beginning days and seeing some of the fivefold played out in a pretty spectacular way. So I'm going to have her share a bit about that, and we're going to just have a discussion about the fivefold.
Yep.
So wherever you want to start on that, maybe just what you experienced first of all.
Okay, if you want me to go that way first. We were in the 80s. We went up to Snoqualmie and North Bend, Washington.
Okay.
And we're building a house in the mountains. And we went to a little church in Snoqualmie that we had been under the leadership of the leader in Alaska for about a year. So we had been familiar with them, and we fought moving there because we didn't want to follow people. But God was so into it because we had sold our house in Seattle and we were living in a rental. And I stayed home from church one day, and I was listening to a teaching on a cassette tape. And it said, someone has all their boxes packed and are waiting to move, but God's already given them the direction. And that's when I knew it was us. And Doug's brother, who was an unbeliever, showed us an ad of a property for sale up in North Bend.
Oh, wow.
5 acres up in the mountains. I mean, this was pretty isolated.
Wow.
Anyway, so we ended up moving there, being a part of this church. And the two leaders, they didn't even want to call themselves pastors. You couldn't call anyone a title. So, and we were, at that point, we were, I'm going to say about 27.
Okay.
We're about 27 years old. And maybe 28, and our girls were 3 and 5. We ended up living in a makeshift shack in a trailer while we're building our house, or trying to build our house, because we had to clear the land first.
Oh, wow.
And dig a well.
And
do everything from scratch.
Wow.
So so we're there. We're part of this fellowship, and it was totally new to us. It was led by the pastor from Alaska, but he didn't want to be called a pastor because he was more apostolic, prophetic, and a teacher. And the other gentleman that partnered with him actually had a Bible study that evolved into this church. He was the pastor, the pastoral of the team. And so we went to this church, and it evolved into a fivefold ministry church. We didn't know at that point that it was fivefold.
Okay.
We had never.
I mean, yeah, it makes sense.
We were in our 20s.
Right.
I mean, yeah, that's in the 80s. So we were wanting a pastor, desperately wanting a pastor. Not that we didn't get leadership, by no means. We did. We wanted to call someone pastor because that's how we were raised.
That's what you knew.
What we knew. So anyway,
he was the king, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So they didn't even want a platform because they didn't want to elevate anyone.
Right.
Crazy, huh?
Okay.
We begged for a platform because one of the speakers was 5'4".
You can't see him.
Couldn't see him.
Literal, practical.
Right, practical. Anyway, so they would take turns, different ones teaching. We had, we built each other's homes because one time we were pouring the foundation of our home finally after about 3 years. Foundation of our home, the semi-cement truck. You're talking going up Longing roads to get to our place.
Yeah.
Tipped over into a pond ditch.
No.
So we had to literally wheelbarrow the cement out. And I think it was only Doug and I at that point up there. Maybe my father was there. But all of a sudden, all these people started showing up. We didn't have cell phones, so we did not have a phone.
Wow.
Because we were on raw land.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, all these people started showing up, and about 8 people showed up from the church. They just felt impressed to come up and help us that day.
How cool.
So we got our foundation in, and women and men showed up. So anyway, that was just part of it. We built each other's homes. We watched other kids for weeks at a time. Homeschooled together. Had co-ops. We if someone was hurting, you met their need. Cars were given. We stayed in homes for no rent while we're building also.
Wow.
And so it was that kind of church community because and we knew each other. We knew each other's needs. We could just drop by anyone's house at any point in time, and you're welcomed. So it was an interesting journey that we have not seen replicate. But the leaders were so unselfish and they showed us servant leadership, that we served each other. We had women's ministry that delved into all the needs of the body, hospitality, Bible studies, whatever the case, whatever was needed. And then, of course, we had that children's ministry where we had 180 in the church, with 80 being kids.
Oh my, almost half and half.
So, and 54 of those adults, so half of the adults were teachers.
Oh my.
Because we had 2 services and you only taught once a month.
Okay, yeah, that's sharing the load. There's no 80-20 going on there.
No. So you went to the church, you were pretty much involved.
Okay, right.
So we even had a teacher one time that got saved teaching. God's amazing.
That's unorthodox.
I know. So we've not been, since our 20s, we really haven't been in religious churches.
That's interesting.
We've been outside the box always, typically. So,
but you have gone to some that they did have religious ways as it unfolded more.
We have in different periods, but we typically didn't stay long.
Right. You're like, no, this isn't matching.
Right. No,
feels off.
We kind of like the freedom that Christ wants to give his church.
Yeah.
And that he and we absolutely believe in team leadership.
Yes.
Because we saw it. Yeah. We saw the health of it. And it was interesting. These 2 leaders never lorded over anyone because the pastoral model in our society and the world tends to lead to hierarchy and ranking and spectators versus players on the field.
Yeah.
And the fivefold was meant to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry, that the leaders weren't necessarily the workers.
Right.
They're the workers.
Yeah.
But we are the workers.
All
the people,
of
all of us are. And then the whole religious thinking, don't touch my anointed, meaning the pastor, is like, wait a minute, we're all anointed, aren't we? To do the work of the ministry.
Yes.
So it just puts a whole slant on it that it actually binds up the laity and they don't have to be responsible.
Right.
It's all on the leaders to do the work.
And it's sad because it's what's the word, exasperated or whatever, that the people then expect the leaders to do it all right, and the leaders take that on because they think, oh, it is up to me.
Right.
So there's kind of that feeding each other's wrong perspective of how this is supposed to be working.
Right. It's not fair to either side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you have burnout, and then you have pastors hiding.
Yeah, because
can't be transparent because they're put on a pedestal and they're supposed to be the perfect leader. So then they hide in whatever, or aren't even able to share their needs.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. They have this
it's just,
false responsibility.
Right.
Expecting themselves to be perfect.
Because they're looking up to
ideas. Me. Yeah. Definitely strange.
Right. So
I was going to ask, sorry. Did in that time in the 80s in that church, was there any of the not thinking that women should be leaders?
Very much so.
Okay. I was
so curious. That was the one area they changed after a season.
Okay.
But for the 80s, during the 80s, in the 90s, it changed.
Okay.
But the 80s, women were not in the leaders' meeting.
Interesting. So it changed. That's kind of miraculous.
It did change.
How did it end up changing?
Well, it was changed in after a while. I'm not sure how all that morphed.
It just kind of
did. Okay. I think revelation of
truth.
Right. Truth. But that was the norm back in the 80s.
Right.
But women could speak in front of the church, could teach adults.
Okay.
But they weren't in the leadership meeting, other than the women had their own leadership
with each
council.
Other.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, we had a leadership team for the women.
Got it.
So yes, that was the one negative in that. But you know what? No one's perfect, and
of course
but it was interesting. We went to a memorial service about 2.5 years ago for a wife of the man who was a pastor. No, it was anyway. Yeah, it was somebody.
One of the people
one of the leaders.
Okay,
and probably about 500 people showed.
Wow.
And from all over the Western United States.
Wow.
Because they were so dear. So dear to us. They touched
so many lives.
And that we all remembered. And then we met at church the next day together and had this powwow. And it was, none of us had ever seen another church like that. Because it was truly an Acts church. If someone was in need, the need was met. We met each other's needs. We were in each other's lives. We broke bread together. I mean, we had each other in our homes. We dinner in our homes, because restaurants, well, where we lived, there weren't that many restaurants. But, and we couldn't afford it. Most women didn't work. So we were in each other's homes. So we really did get to know each other.
Got to be there for each other.
Yeah.
And was it that church that ended up having some troubles later down the road as far as the
leader? No.
Yeah, that was a different church.
A different church.
Okay. Yeah, because I only reason I'm bringing it up is just that I think it's so important to talk about sometimes what happens with churches. You know, they start out on a good foot. They get it going good. You feel the right stuff is happening. And then, I mean, obviously the enemy's involved too. He doesn't want a successful, powerful ecclesia to be functioning in all of her glory.
Right.
But I think it's so important to look at, okay, where did this breakdown start happening? You know, what did we miss? What happened? What's going on? So
Okay. Well, in that church also, we ended up coming against, I'm going to say fighting, because it was a battle, some school curriculum. And the leadership supported it. And we stood against something that was trying to come into the community. So it was in some form the ecclesia also.
Right.
So it was interesting. I mean, totally into family.
Yeah.
Obviously.
80 children of 180.
Right.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, so no, the other church you're talking about was a North Dakota church.
Okay.
And it didn't have a fivefold ministry model.
I see.
It was more of a leader model, and the leader, and that's the fallacy.
Got it.
It
was all on that leader.
Well, not all. We all did ministry.
Well, I mean, the responsibility
but
for the church.
He became too pompous. I'm going to say that. Right. And he thought he was the apostle for the area.
Got it.
And he was too self-important. Yeah. And he was very anointed.
They usually are.
And but it just was, the enemy got in and just destroyed his life and lives around him.
That's so sad. I hate that.
Right. So, but yeah, it's just it's been an interesting walk. Yeah. In church life.
Yeah. So having heard all of that and just that perspective kind of a fivefold functioning church, let's break down the fivefold a little bit. What would you like to share as far as what is the fivefold to you? What have you learned?
Well, obviously the apostle builds. Okay. The apostle builds.
Yeah, I agree.
And he has the vision from the prophet, but he also has a vision.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
I think there's kind of a
mix there.
But God gives the apostle the ability to move mountains.
Right.
And go. Because without the apostle, the prophet just has a vision.
The apostle helps accomplish that vision, make it happen, get it going. Yeah,
right. It's like an architect and a builder.
Yeah, that's good.
Because the builder is going to build the building, the architect's going to design it, but the apostle also can have the design too. But I think
the important thing there, because it says, the church will be built on the foundation of the apostle and prophet.
Right.
And I think the important thing, that why God chose that, is because it can't be just one man, because we have to have that humbling of ourselves to need another person. You don't have the 100% vision, ability, everything. You have to depend on each other.
Yes.
Because that's where it gets funky, like you even mentioned, the pompous leader.
Right, because that was the difference. The other church who didn't, they aren't anymore for other reasons, but it wasn't a bad ending.
That's good.
But there was a team.
Right.
The other one was a leader that everyone thought was anointed and couldn't do anything wrong.
Right, which is so scary. Goodness.
Well, it's a cultish thinking.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah. There is just one, and he has the last say on everyone, including their lives. Like, what?
Right.
You're just over this church. But yeah, you can see where a lot of things get weird there. I was going to say apostle, prophet. I forgot. Anyways.
Okay. So yeah. And I think the apostle and prophet, and that's what is missing in a lot of churches. And when they do the pastor model, although a pastor of a certain church may not be pastoral.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing to me is we've seen that model demonstrated so much. The pastor is the preacher. The pastor is the leader. Oftentimes, the pastor should never be teaching, or like he's just not gifted and wasn't supposed to be teaching, but he thinks he's supposed to because he's the pastor. But then sometimes the pastor isn't even the leader over like the church. The pastor is the one in the people.
Well, that's
connecting, nurturing, raising up, protecting the flock.
Well, that's the pastoral model.
Right.
Is supposed to be the shepherd and protection and caring and nurturing.
Yeah, and he's one of the team members of the 5.
Very important team member.
But usually pastors are not very good at leading a whole church, directing, executing the intense words of God sometimes, because they're so scared of disrupting the people or making them uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
because their gift is nurture, mercy, compassion,
Right.
protection. It makes sense.
Right.
They help keep the apostle and the prophet accountable too, you know, to not be like, onward and who cares, everyone out of the way.
And bearable.
Exactly. And that was another thing that I've seen about the apostles. Oftentimes they're the ones that are tempted to kind of bulldoze over the people to get the vision done.
Well, because God told me to do this, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah. So there has to be that slowing down, humbling of them and their vision, and
caring for the people, because it's all about the people.
It is. And yeah, just back to what we were talking about in the first place, relational.
Right.
God cares about the family. The church is the family. It's his children.
Right.
So we've gotten really out of whack in a lot of churches, sadly. And that has been this journey that I'm on that kind of opened up this whole channel anyways, is like, okay, why are we still doing it this way? Can we change some things? Let's look at this.
I think some are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not saying they're all not. I agree.
Right.
Yes.
And you know what? They don't know any different.
Right. Right.
It's like, this is what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always produce. Some churches do it, and they do it well, but I think it's perhaps because they do have some team behind them.
Right. They're good at doing the team. And teacher, what would you say about teacher?
Well, a teacher is to equip. Well, they all are to equip in their own giftings. But of course, the teacher is teaching, knowledge, but not just knowledge, revelatory.
Yes.
Let's hear from God. Let's hear from heaven.
Mm-hmm.
What is God saying for today?
Mm-hmm.
What is God saying for the kingdom? What is God saying? It's just more practical.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's step by step, and sometimes it can be boring.
Mm-hmm.
The teacher is step by step a lot of times, methodical, and trying to get in you the principles of God.
Mm-hmm.
That's their job, is to reveal God to you and to his character, his nature, and revelatory. I think it needs to be pertainable to today, but also new revelation.
Mm-hmm. Which I kind of think, I think you're right. There's the revelation there, which keeps it, from being boring, or just like methodical. And when a teacher is anointed, you really want to listen. They're very good. You are interested, and they keep you grounded in the word too, to where prophets can sometimes get off in more of the ethereal and like mysteries of God, because it's so fun. We love the depths of God. It's amazing. But it's good to have that balance of still the anchoring in the word and accountability and all of the things as you begin to understand some of the mysteries of God.
The teacher will explain the prophet.
Right.
The teacher will explain the apostle and the evangelist and the pastor.
That's
the
good.
Teacher will explain the functions.
That's good.
And they will be able to bring meat to the bones.
Yeah.
And yes, keep balance.
Mm-hmm.
But a good teacher is right. It'll put light bulbs. It's like, oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
But they give light bulbs into God's ways and thinkings of Scripture.
Yeah, that's true. And as a prophet, I really appreciate the teachers who can put into words some of the things I'm experiencing that I don't even have words for sometimes. And I try to express or bring this vision to clarity. And I sometimes get the like, looks. I'm like, well, shoot, it was really clear to me. But it has helped to hear people, teachers, gifted teachers who can come alongside and be like, I think this is kind of what you're trying to say, and just really bring it to life, and then be able to present it in a palatable way.
Right. To be able to digest.
Yeah. Totally. And then the evangelist.
Well, the evangelist. Yeah. That's probably the one that is more of a mystery to me. But I mean, of course, the evangelist is souls, more into the kingdom, and they are more persuasive.
Right.
They would be your salesman out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So they like numbers. They like they just like newness into the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
They want to hand off the new converts to the teachers and pastors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is a good handoff.
Right,
because,
right, to disciple, because we were never meant, I mean, evangelists in the old thinking only wanted numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's changed, it's in Jesus gave the command, it was never go out and save people, because it's really the Holy Spirit's job. We're supposed to water, we're supposed to plow, we're supposed to sow seeds, some water, some sow. It's like we all have a part in the harvest. But so I think that the evangelist coming in, we need the evangelist. Oh my gosh, we need to grow. And when you have a healthy evangelist, they do see that it's bringing in to the body, so that the rest of the body can disciple. And they don't want to stay put. Right. They don't want to be in the four walls.
They want to go do the stuff.
They need to go out.
Yes.
We all do. Yes. But they especially want to be out. They think that church is like, okay, I have to do this thing, but let me out there. Let me out in the streets. So it's great that we all know, because we all have part of these giftings in us. It's not just for a select few. That we all have a piece in us that we need to do our part. And we don't have to be jealous of each other. Because I'm more of a teacher with a prophetic bent. In some instances. Right. So, but evangelists, not so much. So, but bring me someone and I will disciple. So, although I can do street stuff if needed, and go out and talk, but I want to more go out and talk with a purpose.
And I mean, I start to see more and more, like it said, I gave some to be teachers, some to be apostles, some to be prophets. To me, that is permission, that it's okay that you don't like to do evangelism. You're not an evangelist.
Right.
I mean, I have been wrestling with this for a long time too, of like, but man, all churches pretty much feel like, it seems like you should be getting people saved daily, and I would have this like guilt of maybe I am just trying to get out of it, but it's just not in me that way. Also, that was my, pretty religiously ingrained upbringing of what evangelism looks like.
Right.
No, that's not my way of doing it at all. I'm relational. And there are ways that are good. There's just, I think the other side of evangelists too isn't even necessarily souls to get saved, but even the ones that are like a publicist, for God, and just the ideas of and what he's doing, and like getting people excited. And, that's not me, like in that way.
Right.
But I know that we can have, like you said, little bits of the different pieces and stuff. Well, because we have Holy Spirit, we could have access to anything. But I do believe he specifically gave each of us strengths. And gift and call. And so all of us. And so I think we get distracted by thinking we're supposed to do it all.
Right.
And I think we are supposed to narrow into what he specifically put on our lives and called us to do. And there's a lot of freedom in that, because I think that does protect us from the comparison and like,
and jealousies.
And jealousy. Because you think, well, shoot, I'm not a teacher like Linda. Maybe I am not a very good Christian, okay, I need to study the word more. I need to get better at speaking. I need to get better,
Right.
I was like, no, I'm not a teacher like Linda. I'm a prophet like Jessica.
Yep.
So there's so much freedom in knowing it's okay, that he literally put specific things in you. And that's the key to hearing the voice of God, is just to understand, what did he put in me on this earth to help function, release the kingdom of God, unite the people of God, love people well, love God, love my neighbor as myself.
Right.
You can really break it down to that simple. If you want to get out of the complication of it all.
Right. And to me, the evangelism, and I think it's going to get even. I think there will be an explosion of evangelism because the signs and wonders and miracles are going to increase.
Yes.
And to me,
I
that
agree.
I can do that kind of evangelism.
Yeah, right.
And the miracles and the signs and the wonders. Jesus, that's what Jesus did. That was his evangelism.
Yes.
I mean, he taught in parables. He taught he was a teacher. So, but what drew people to him were the miracles and signs and wonders and healing. And that is where we're going to be picking up, and our children are going to be walking on our ceiling.
Yes.
In that.
I agree.
Totally. And
me.
I'm excited to watch God be displayed on earth in all his glory.
Yes. Let it be so, Lord. We're ready.
Yep.
Well, cool. I think that's a good little breakdown of the fivefold. I know there's a lot more to learn. And for me, I just think it would be fun to just try it out. Like, what does it look like that you actually have 5 full-on leaders that equally share the load and bounce the ideas off each other and allow each of them to bring their strength, and they're not looked down on because, this one loves worship so much and we don't want to do worship as long, or this one loves teaching, we definitely need short worship and long teaching, and this one, it's like there just has to be the compromise. It's all of it. It's all of it.
And it could be one Sunday you'd have all worship, or one Sunday maybe you don't have any.
Exactly. It's hilarious to me that we don't break out of that mold of a Sunday service. I'm like, how have we done this exactly the same for years and years and years and years? It's so weird to me. Not that it's wrong. That's just a way.
Right. Because I still love corporate worship and I love corporate teaching.
Yeah. And those parts are good.
I love it all. So
it's just, but why is it exactly the same? It's so funny to me. But I know that's what God has put in me, is like questioning the status quo. Like, there are different ways.
Right.
Let's try them just for fun. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, that church in the 80s, we did try different things.
Nice.
They tried to do teaching first, then worship. I mean, they still did the same things, but sometimes we did worship the whole time. So we did try different things. Yeah. But typically you went back to the same model.
Right.
Just saying.
Because I know there's good parts in that too. And so I do think that's part of it.
Yeah.
But I think there's more.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how his kingdom evolves.
Right?
Because
I'm excited about
the whole prophetic unction and the prophetic spirit out there now is saying a 1 billion soul harvest. So
I know,
are we ready?
Wild.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, some things for you to think about, and more things for us to think about. Yeah. Thanks for listening and tuning in. And also, if you have any specific areas that you would be interested into us going into more discussion on, whether me and Linda or other people, I just am, I'm on the search for who God is highlighting in our region right now for what he's doing in this region of Oregon. And I would love to hear if you have someone in mind who is doing the stuff and living this out. And I'm excited that many of us are rising up and just kind of like, okay, let's try this. I don't know exactly what I'm doing. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm trusting God to show me. And I know he's bringing the people. He is connecting the people that need to be together. And that's cool. Have a great day.